So now we're going to create a moving banner in Photoshop using the timeline. We're going to go to the web new document, and we're going to put in our own values here. We're going to go with 720 by 486. This is going to give us a smaller box that's going to be, a smaller window that's going to be less than our 1920 by 1080. So we'll have a little bit of room on the screen. If you wanted to make this full screen, you would obviously make it 1920 by 1080. Background can be white. I'm actually going to make my background black, and I'm going to hit create. And now what we have is we have a new artboard. I'm going to go to view, and I'm just going to turn off the extras. I don't need to see the artboard name and all of that stuff. I just want to work with this area here. And what you're going to see is a timeline in here. And the way to get to that is Window, Timeline in Photoshop, and that will give you the timeline, which is right here. And once we start to put objects on the page, we're going to be able to create a video out of these objects in Photoshop, and that's the goal. And then we're going to take that video and we can use it anywhere we'd like, but we're going to be able to bring it into other things like presentations or other videos. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to bring in our artwork, and I'm going to go to File, Place Embedded, and when I do that, on my desktop I've got some images of foxes that I've picked up, and I'm going to grab one of these images. I'll use this one here, and I'll hit place. And now what I can do is this has come in, and I've got a little letterbox here. I can extend this out full screen, or I can leave the letterbox. That's kind of up to you. If I full screened it, I'm going to just grab the corner here, and Photoshop is automatically going to give me a locked aspect ratio, so I don't have to worry about holding the shift key or the corner. And I can pull this open and hit return, and now we have this background. Now once I do this, if I go down to create video timeline, what I'm going to get is I'm going to get this artboard with its layers on a timeline. And what this allows you to do is it allows you to now start to manipulate these layers in a time-based area that will allow you to apply different effects and manipulations to create a more of a multimedia approach. You could also add sound to this if you wanted to, which is something that we will do later on. So what we're going to do here is we're going to bring this in, and you'll notice it comes in on the timeline, and this timeline is based in the SMPTE time code. So what you have is you have hours, minutes, seconds, and frames. And you'll notice if you look at my timeline, I'll shrink it down a little bit. Right now, I'm at 5 seconds. So you'll see the F stands for frames, and you'll see here just a regular time code, 5 seconds, and then 0 frames. So we're going to be working at 30 frames per second. So every 30 frames would give us 1 second of video. So we're going to work here, and what we can do is we can drop this down, and we see our actual layer, and we're going to be able to go in and manipulate this. We can do different types of manipulations, but we're going to just do something simple now. We're going to just work with the layer, and we're going to have it just fade in. So what we're going to do is we're going to drop this down, and you'll notice there's a little arrow here. Once we drop the arrow down, we get some attributes that we can manipulate. Because this is a smart object, or a raster image operates the same way, we have transform, opacity, and style. Now, if we converted this to rasterize the layer, now you're going to see this change to position. So we can't transform objects like this. We can move the position. So I'm just going to undo that and leave this the way it is, and we'll do a transform here. Either way, you can use opacity. So transform is going to be scaling or rotating. What we're going to do here is we're going to just scale this in. So we're going to go in, and when we click this little clock right here, we're going to be enabling a keyframe animation. And what animation is its change over time. And to do that, we need points where the change is going to occur. And those points of change are called keyframes. So keyframes are represented right here with this diamond. And you notice nothing's happening right now as I move this playback head. But the diamond represents the first frame. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this right to the 3-second mark. And at this point, I'm going to click the diamond here. And what that's going to do is it's going to give us another keyframe. So right now we have 2 keyframes. And again, nothing's happening here. Nothing's going on. But what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the first keyframe, click on it, and when we click on the object, we can hit Command T. And what we can do is we can scale this down. Oh, we're going to have to hold the Shift key, scale it down, and now if I move it to the center, what I'm going to do then is when I move this, I hit enter. When I move this, you're going to see this scale up. Okay. So if I hit the space bar, I'm going to get this to play, and you'll notice this will now scale up. Okay. And then stay. So what we're going to do is we're going to be able to have this scale up, and if we wanted to manipulate the opacity as well, we can go on, click on the clock here, and we move to this same spot that we want the next change to occur. We didn't do anything yet. And now we go back to the first frame. We click on it, and now we can lower the opacity down to 0. And what will happen is, as we play this, this will now fade in. So this is how we get the timeline, and we get to do a fade in. Now the timeline is going to be as long as we keep it. So what we would need to do is we would need to extend this out even more, depending on how long our video was. Okay, so and then the video would end up fading to black or ending on a screen. So what we have here now is we've extended this out to 10 seconds. And when we play this, we have this fade in. And now stays on the screen. Now, as this is on the screen, we can put other information on here, and what that will allow us to do is create kind of a visual experience without just looking at a static screen. This fades in, and now what we'll be able to do is put some text on the screen so that we can add to this. So now we're going to get some copy to put in. I'm just going to grab some here off the web just to use for the example. And once we do this, we're going to be able to go back in, and we're going to be able to click on the text tool. and lay text over our image here. So I'm going to just lay a box right here, and then I'm going to paste, and I get this text that's coming in black. I can make it white. I can raise the size of it. And by manipulating the box, so we can go in and then, if you wanted to change the typeface, you can certainly do that. But you want to keep it consistent with what you had. You want to make sure that the text is readable. So if, for example, this text isn't readable over the Fox, we can do a couple of things. We can put a box over it, under it, I should say, which is something we can do, which we did in the last example. So to do that, we're simply going to go over to the shape tool, and we're going to create a new layer for that shape. And all of these things are going to show up on our timeline. So just be ready for that. And I make the shape here. I'm going to pull it underneath, and then I'm going to lower out the opacity on it just to give a little bit of contrast. And if that text is too big, we can again double click. We can lower down the font size. We can reposition it. And now we've created a screen with text on it. And as we, I'm just going to save this here. And now what we have is we've got these two layers, and they're both on the timeline. What's going to happen is the box will come in afterwards, or we will move these and we will butt them up together so that they are together on the timeline. And now we can pull them to the end. And if we play, we see the video starting. And again, it's more of a presentation, but we're getting some motion here. And our text is going to come in. And again, this stuff is a little choppy because it's not rendered out yet. Okay. So what you'll notice is this is a little further away on the timeline than the box. So as we move this back, you can see how this is kind of coming into shape. This is just ghosting from the video. All right. So as we go in, now we've got these pieces, and we can add more to this if we want to. We can figure out what other elements, and then we can just replay this and put another panel. So we can move in, and now what we're going to do is we can add another panel to this. So I'm going to go to File, and I'm going to place Embedded. And this is going to go in where the timeline is. So I'm going to just grab this image. I place it, and you'll notice that it comes in after everything else. So if I go here, well, I have to open this up first. So I will scale this. Give the author his credit, and then hit enter. And now this will go into this image, and we can lay text over that as well. So if I wanted to do that, I could simply make another box, or I could copy this box and put it in that place and then add other text in. So let's just make another text box. You're going to click here, drag a box, and now if I go back, I can grab this other copy, and now I'm just going to copy it and paste it in. And again, we're just doing this for purposes of showing you. The rectangle we can then copy, make a new layer just by dragging it down, and then I'm going to pull it up so that it's here. And if we simply just hit Command T, we can then just change the size of this. And now what we're going to have, and we can pull this over, and the rectangle so that they're together. And as we play this, here's what we have. And you'll see that the text will come in. And again, this is just grainy because it's not rendered out yet. And then we go to the next piece. And now our presentation so far, our video is down here. And you'll notice that if we just even these out, now we have everything kind of sitting on the same frame. And you'll notice as you go down, you'll be able to manipulate this timeline, and then we could go in and do the same things to these different layers as we did here if we wanted to, or we can just leave it as a static piece. Now we're going to add audio to this before we render it out, and there's a couple of different types of audio. You can obviously add music, or you can add voiceover, or you could add both. So we're going to do that just so you learn how to do that here. And first thing we'll do is we'll add in the voiceover track. So there's already an audio track in your timeline. We're going to go to the little arrow, and we're going to go to Add Audio. And I've got a little narration that I put together just explaining some of those points. And it's an M4A file. I'm just going to open that up, and it comes right into Photoshop. And you'll notice that it extends past where our imagery is. So we're going to take our images and we're just going to extend them. And again, we can have this fade to black or whatever we need to do. So we've extended that out, and if we just play this.
The red fox lives from 2 to 5 years. It can run up to speeds of 31 miles per hour. It weighs from 4.5 to 31 pounds. And it stands 14 to 20 inches tall.
Okay, so we've got a little cheesy voiceover there that I put together, and now we're going to add in some music. So what we need to do is we need to go down, and if we click back on that arrow, we can do New Audio Track. And that's going to add a track to the bottom here. And we're going to then, again, go to Add Audio. And if you wanted to delete the track or add another track or delete a clip, replace, you could do that here, obviously. We're going to go in, and then we have a music track, which is an MP3. I bring in that music track, and now you'll see the music track extends way past the voiceover. So that means that the music is longer than what I was saying. So I'm going to go here, and what I can do is I can click on this, and I can grab it, and I can drag it all the way down and bring it back to where my clips are. And then we're going to be able to fade it out so that it's not choppy. So we bring it back to here, and as I go back, I'm going to save this, and now let's just see what we have. So we notice that the audio is considerably louder than the voiceover. So how do we fix this? Well, if you go down on the audio track, you've got some controls here with this arrow. We've got a fade in, a fade out, and then we've also got volume. So I'm going to bump up my volume by 10%. Could even bump it up 20%. And then go down here and lower the volume down to, let's say 20%. We'll say 15. Because we just want this kind of in the background. So let's see how that is. So we do that. We bring our playback head back. Save our file. We hit the space bar.
The red fox lives from 2 to 5 years. It can run up to speeds of 31 miles per hour.
So, okay. I can boost up the audio a little bit, the voiceover. Click on it. And put it up to 150. And now we should get a little bit more. Let's see how it is.
The red fox lives from 2 to 5 years. It can run up to speeds of 31 miles per hour. It weighs from 4.5 to 31 pounds. And it stands 14 to 20 inches tall.
Okay, so we hear it go out, and what we're going to be able to do is we're going to be able to not extend the audio track for the voiceover, but we're going to be able to go in and we're going to do a fade out on the music for the last, I don't know, we'll do a fade out in the last 4 seconds. And now let's see what we get.
And it stands 14 to 20 inches tall.
So that's a nice little ending there. So what we've done now is we've added in audio. We've added in our imagery, our text. And now the last step is for us to output this, to export the video. And we're going to go down. There's a drop down right here, or you can go, there's another place you can go File, Export Render Video right here, or you can simply go to the window and you can go to Render Video. When we get to the Render Video window, you are going to have to select where the video is going to go. You are also going to have to select how this is going to be output. You don't have a lot of choices here. If you were doing this and you needed to put it in uncompressed to a film or to another production, you would use QuickTime and you would use uncompressed or animation high quality, but typically uncompressed if it was going to someplace else. But for the web, we're not going to do that. We're going to use H.264. And then you've got your quality settings here depending on what you're doing. If you're outputting for a specific medium, we're just going to go with high quality. You'll see the size here. The frame rate is 2997. I said 30 frames. It's actually 2997 is the frame rate for this. And we can do all frames. We can do a start and end frame. But looks like we're good here. And now we're going to hit render. And when we do this, Photoshop then is going to export that video. And now as we go out, we go into our folder and we see our Fox sample video. If we double click on it, it will just open up in the player.
The red fox lives from 2 to 5 years. It can run up to speeds of 31 miles per hour. It weighs from 4.5 to 31 pounds. And it stands 14 to 20 inches tall.
So there we have the video, and now we are able to take this and drop it into another application.